Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Procrastinator's Pitstop. And we are here again with another amazing guest, Jeremy Lasman. Jeremy is a visionary entrepreneur revolutionizing human performance. His journey from SpaceX technologist to pioneer of inner space led him to invent imagination technology. Now leading the Passion Company, Jeremy is launching the Earth's first passion utility. By treating passion as a fundamental resource, he's helping individuals dramatically reduce negativity and unlock unprecedented levels of creativity and performance. Jeremy's innovative approach to harnessing passion is opening new frontiers in personal development and offering a transformative perspective on achieving peak states across all areas of life. Jeremy, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
No trouble at all. Now, before we dig into it, we often do have an icebreaker here on the show. And the question for you, Jeremy, is which fictional character do you most identify with and why?
I think if we're going to fictional characters, I would have to go my love growing up of professional wrestling and their larger than life personas. Growing up, I was really inspired by the Ultimate Warrior, that warrior energy, the warrior spirit, and that really kind of talked to me because I was like a shy, introverted kid, and I kind of always dreamed of unleashing kind of that inner power in myself. And so that character has always stuck with me you know, since I was young.
Okay, that's a good one. So let's dig into it. What Can you tell us a little bit about your background, Jeremy, and sort of what led you to where you are today?
Sure. Like how far back should we go? I mean, I was a very rebellious in school. I did not like school at all. I was a daydreamer, kind of labeled that gifted underachiever because I didn't see the point of it. I didn't like the social life of it. I felt like an outcast in the school days, but I found a deep, kind of love of technology growing up. It was kind of on that cusp of the internet and all these things are starting to come in as didn't grow up with cell phones, but then they came in as I got older. So I was in that kind of middle zone there to get raised by it. And also passion for video editing and video production when I was first getting into that. And so that kind of kept me, away from the things I didn't want to deal with. And after high school, I got an opportunity at SpaceX to be an IT guy there. And then as I kind of grew, they needed some more help in the marketing department in terms of that video editing skill. And so I got to do rocket videos and trade show booth videos and music videos after their successful launches. And so I was kind of, IT marketing kind of in the middle. And then after SpaceX, I kind of dove into more artistic side that I never felt like I was an artist, but I kind of gave myself the opportunity to explore it and then ended up finding a group of artists and we made a comic book called Mania. Did that for a few years. And then around the same time, I started to tap into this soul's work, I would call it, because it was something I didn't really understand completely. The vision was much bigger than I could process. But I call it my R&D years, research and development, because I was testing, I was experimenting, I was my own first test subject. And then kind of those years went forward. And that's where I am today with the Passion Company and actually delivering this soul's work that you said earlier, the imagination technology.
Okay, why don't you tell us a little bit about imagination technology? What is that?
Sure. So imagine that the brain is like a computer. That's kind of the first kind of step of what we're bringing here, because once you do that, you kind of are looking at the body as the hardware and the mind as the software. And then even beyond that, the spirit or soul is sort of the higher user of this whole body, mind, spirit connection that we have here. I surveyed like, okay, what are we really being limited and bottlenecked by in terms of the stresses, the anxieties, procrastinations, all these things that hold us back, hold our inner power down, and uh, the quality of our energy with all this negativity and fear and all this stuff. And what I discovered was that it was this survival of the fittest operating system, us versus them, conflict, competition, scarcity of resource. Like, it's a very violent and combative operating system, and it's really designed for threats that are in our immediate surroundings. If we go back to like the animalistic, survival drive of it, but it's fear and negativity driven and threats. And so it's not really efficient for nowadays, where we are much more intelligent and it's a lot less violent of a environment that we're in. So imagination technology is a new operating system that challenges those old architecture of how we used to run this fight or flight mode, which is not really serving us anymore. And so that's what leads to all those problems. And so a new operating system allows those old things to run more effectively, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, and what you said was interesting too about the animal side of it, the survival of the fittest. And what's interesting is there are actually a few examples in the animal kingdom where it's like survival of the friendliest. So
Oh,
so
really? Can you
well, yeah. I mean,
maybe?
the two examples that came up were I think they were emperor penguins because they all huddled together to keep warm, right? So being friendly is a survival trait because if you're like, oh well, no, screw you, I'm gonna go off on my own, you're gonna freeze to death, right? And then of course everyone's favorite animal, the dog, right? Saying that over what, like a few thousand years, the friendliest dogs were the ones that got bred, and they were the ones that they actually got fed and got the benefits, right? So
Yeah,
survival of the friendliest.
yeah.
So it's definitely interesting there. And you were talking about sort of alluding to something deeper there too, with when you're talking about changing out the software, but you're not really changing the software. You sort of like reconditioning or reprogramming, kind of like.
That's a good way of looking at it. I mean, I think if we just step back and see that the mind itself is like software, I think that first is, as you said, a deep realization of looking at the brain as a computer and asking, well, what is the software, right? And we can see that it is a set of programming and conditioning, most importantly. That's where we go to the nature versus nurture and the DNA. Like, all this stuff goes to our worldview, and how we operate comes from this software. And so, yes, it's not that we're changing anything without the free will and the active participation here. It's really that conscious evolution, the invitation to have a hand in how you operate, and that it is up to you how you want to operate, but just to give you that choice to see how it has been unconsciously operating and driven by fear and negativity to can be cleaner. It can be more love and passion based.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the staggering amount of what we do is based around pain or fear, right? So I mean, it's like anywhere up to the statistics are up to 98% of people operate in our lives that way, right? And it's all stuff we don't even know about. So um, why don't what it and just as an example, like a very personal example, I had this event happen to me when I was a child, and I figured, okay, well that's fine. That affects this, and this. Fine, got it, right? No, that's not it though, because it had offshoots to that as well. So it's very interesting how these negative
Um,
connotations can actually like branch out. So why don't you go into a little bit about this passion utility? How does it work?
so This is cool because we're innovating something here. We're doing something new, and it challenges some old preconceptions. Because if you look at the dictionary, or if you go especially into like religious territory, passion has sort of a meaning. Uh, Dictionary would maybe go towards just it being this uncontrollable emotion. And then you go over to like religious territory, and you have the passion of the Christ, and you get more into like the suffering of passion. And yes, these are some terms to kind of have some sort of common understanding about what passion is. But what we're doing is kind of redefining or finding a new definition that might be a little bit more appropriate for where we are as a species. Because just as in water and gas and electricity are utilities because they connect to a basic human need, right? Passion is basic human need because it is the fuel of human energy. And the reason I say this is because passion is what distinguishes humans from animals and machines. Passion is the I would consider the lifeblood of how we are alive, not just survive, but alive as a human race. It is a fuel, and thus we're treating it as and see it as a basic human need. And so, just like there's all the infrastructure they had to create for water utilities and the water company or the gas company and the pipelines and the infrastructure and the clean water, clean gas, all that stuff had to be laid down to support the basic human need and deliver water to every household, right? Clean water. We're looking at passion the same way. So we're treating it as a fuel, and we're looking at how can we supply and support the highest quality passion in our customers, our users, first through this operating system, but then also the support of cleaning fear and negativity from person's fuel, body, mind, spirit, energy. And so we're visioning a cleaner energy way of life by seeing passion as a basic human need.
Okay. And it's it's interesting you say that too. This has been documented by other authors and other scientists as well. And I mean, when you feel joyful or when when you're following your passion, I mean, everybody knows this, right? You've been studying all night or you've been working all night, whatever the case may be, and you go out and you meet up with this person that see if it could turn into a relationship, and you wind up going out until like talking and doing all sorts of things till 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and you're still going, and you go to work the next day and you're still fine. But if you just stay up until 4 in the morning and you're not, you're just binge watching Netflix or something, you're gonna have like a little bit of an energy hangover there, right? So definitely by finding and tapping into those passion sources, it seems like we have almost a limitless amount of energy set, correct?
That is the theory, isn't it? And I love the way that you painted that, because you're really speaking to human energy, right? And almost like there's a battery uh, that fills and drains, and it's perfectly appropriate to see the fuel that fills that battery. And when we're drained and tired and limited versus no, this is connected to a limitless source of energy here, but it's just a matter of the hardware and software efficiently routing it correctly, you know?
And so tell me a little bit about the process. I mean, it's an ongoing process, but how would our listeners maybe if they're curious about checking it out, how would they go to get hooked up? But
Sure.
in,
Plugged in. I love that. Sure, it's super easy. So we have a few choices. First is always the operating system itself. Like that's sort of how we get on terms and speak the same language together. So that's the first step. And we have two options for that. It's either DIY, that you're kind of a self-starter, you want to do yourself, and it's very, very simple. It's 5 videos, and those are 3 main videos out of 5 videos that show you everything that you need to upgrade your operating system. And these 3 theories are kind of counterculture to the way that the survival of the fittest operating system was designed. And so through these videos that are delivered in an online program, you get delivered the operating system. And if you don't want to do DIY, we also have a guided upgrade where we take you through each video over the course of 4 weeks, a month, and basically hold your hand, high touch, personalized experience to get this new operating system. And then from there, it's just the various levels of support and intensity for conscious evolution. And so the way we distinguish that is survival of the fittest was the operating system for natural selection. And I don't know how many of the listeners are from science class, but like natural selection is very much a random, like mutation-based way of evolution. And it takes over long periods of time. And it very much sets the stage that nature is an external force that is happening to a species, and victim almost to it. And so that's why that operating system is designed for something that's older. Imagination technology is engineered, if you want to look at it like that, for conscious evolution. That's almost like a human being being handed a pen or a pencil to their own transformation. It's a new opportunity for us. I mean, we can go all the way back to like, Greek days, Roman days, where they were getting into education and self-improvement, and that's the dabble of what we're talking about. And so conscious evolution isn't like new, but with technology and where we're at, it's a very powerful new opportunity to take that pen and evolve consciously in a shorter period of time, in an accelerated fashion. It's almost like, you take that classic example of the birds that survive have the beak to be able to grab the food out of the dirt, and the ones that don't have the long enough beak can't survive, right? And so nature evolved the beaks that could grab the food the most. They were the fittest, right? So it's almost like now we as human beings, individually and collectively, can now determine how we want to evolve best. And that is a very big opportunity with a lot of ramifications. And so we need an operating system that is supportive of that level of power, of inner power. And that's sort of what we're bringing here.
And you mentioned that you piloted the system yourself and you tested it. So what do you think was the biggest revelation that maybe you learned about yourself on that journey?
I mean, that is a big question. I could go to many different facets of my personality and procrastination. I'm sure we're going to dive into that a little bit here, but like there was a level of like a lack of confidence, a lack of communication ability to really this invention. So I had to be my own test subject. I had to put the scalpel to my own software, my own consciousness, to test it, to stress test it, to put it through its paces to make sure it didn't kill me, in that way. And so that process of self-discovery allowed me to remove a lot of the things that were in the way to fully owning who I was, the inner power to communicate and not be a lone wolf with it, only in here, but to find help and support to bring this to life, or I like to say to land it, because I'm an astronaut in the sense of, where I play. So to land it here on Earth, to do podcasts like this where I'm getting the message out. And the most succinct way is, and I'm sure you can relate to this in procrastination, is just the getting out of your own way. Because I was a blunt object in my own way that, fighting against myself to share, pour my soul out for people. And it's scary to come up against those protective security measures of putting yourself out there and talking about it. And I hope that gives some emotion there, but that's
I mean, of course, the old, witch wound, or perfectionism, or and the old adage that those that are different don't survive.
Mhm.
It's actually ingrained into us again too, going back into it. Like if you were different, you didn't survive, therefore your genes didn't carry on. So it's kind of been, subconsciously ingrained into us for a very long time as well. But just going back to procrastination, you sort of touched on it there. So, getting in your own way, like what did procrastination mean for you personally?
Well, you just said it actually, the perfectionism, overthinking. Because a lot of the silos that I'm taking down and things that I'm mixing together that have never been mixed before, very much look at it as an intersection of scientist and artist. I can't say, I'm not an educated scientist in terms of a degree and anything like that, but I feel there is a lot of science to how I approached what I approached. Um, the logic and the emotion, like really taking a scientific approach to it. But I also knew there was an art to this. I think if you look at any craft out there, that there is a science, there's technique to it, and then there is artists. There's the creativity there that comes together for mastery or anything that we want to do. So there was so much overthinking because it never seemed good enough. It never seemed ready enough. There was that fear of it, or deeper, a theme of inadequacy that I was contending with around not either feeling good enough or my ideas not being powerful enough or and through that was the perfectionism, the overthinking, and the holding back of the procrastinating, the talking about it or the giving it to other people. And it was a minefield of negativity and neurotic. I that's a great word, because I'm a very sensitive, kind of empathic soul, and with that is a lot of data that I'm feeling, emotions, and being a highly sensitive person and intelligent, and so it's all this neurotic worldview that I was trying to figure out and a puzzle to solve with all that noise.
Okay. And what was your sort of defining moment that, finally pushed you to get out there then? How did you get over it?
Baby steps. It's what I mean. I recommend this to a lot to people all the time. And I'm sure you do too with procrastination. It's just because that perfectionism, let's say, wants to get from A to Z in like one leap, right? And if you can't do it, then you don't do it, and so you're held back by those expectations. Uh, and so it was really slowing down and just taking baby step by baby step, and then that starts to compound. And so, man, there was the first time I went live on Facebook. That was huge, from the shyness, and I mean that, because that sets the ball rolling of like, okay, then you start to get viewers and listeners and comments, and that becomes its own exhilarating kind of experience from not doing that. And I would say also the first time delivered imagination technology in like a test group over the course of, I think it was like 7 days or something like that. I did it, delivered the videos, and people got breakthroughs and relationships with, if I remember correctly, bipolar disorder. He started to see it in a really different way from this new operating system to this day. Actually, he mentions it. And so that was historic for me. And then early clients that I had that shifted whole mental illnesses over a weekend, like shifting it, total upgrade, diabetes. I mean, to see those results, other clients, insomnia. I mean, those are the things that really, inspire the mission to deliver this and what the new operating system can do for people in terms of fear and negativity, especially.
No, for sure. I mean, a lot of people they tend to discount the mind as having any sort of power, but there's many studies on like the placebo effect, or the brain and how it's connected to the body, and how it's almost interchangeable, your physical well-being and your mental well-being, right? Because somebody who's stressed can get ulcers or other things if they overeat, or they're eating the wrong things, and that gets messed up. Or if you don't have enough nutrients, and it messes up your very scientific. I know I'm being very scientific. Messes up
Sure.
the different compounds that go to your brain, and can cause those chemical imbalances that cause things like depression and things like that. And just to go back to what you said about perfectionism, I love giving this example to people because it's so hilarious.
Okay.
So I asked them, well, what's the worst thing that could happen? And they come back to me and they say, oh, well, they could laugh at me. Oh, really? Oh, that didn't stop the team of scientists in World War II from dropping the bomb. Whereas, they weren't even entirely sure they weren't going to ignite the atmosphere. Talk about perfectionism. They could have ignited the atmosphere, right? So, if they can do that, I'm pretty sure you can go and do whatever it is you were going to do. Right?
That's a great, with the Oppenheimer, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Oppenheimer. Yeah.
yeah, that's a good example. That's true. That really does puts it into perspective, doesn't it?
Well, I mean, if one guy can risk, destroying an entire planet on a theory, I'm sure you can get on Facebook or put yourself out there and risk, being laughed at. But that is the thing, though. I mean, the ego is so fragile, right? And we're seeking constant validation. I'm actually interested. Imagination technology, how does that deal with things like validation?
Well, I think you're using a good, the psychological term there, right? Ego, uh, identity. This is all things that when you are approaching personal development, let's start with that, because on one hand, like we can say, oh, the need for validation, maybe some people don't even see it as a problem, right? That's just the unconscious way that it's just the way it is, right? And it's not a problem to them. So I see that over there. Like we have to kind of honor that, maybe some people like that they seek for validation, right? But I assume we're talking over here where, no, I hate this about myself. It's holding me back. It's a problem. I need to fix it. I'm assuming that's where you're dropping us, because that choice first is important. First is, yeah, this thing about myself, I would like to change, that's opens a door first of okay, how? And so there's probably a lot of different ways that someone could go, challenge that program, because that's what it is. It's a programming in your mind and identity that needs it to survive. I need validation to survive, and it's a life and death stake in imagination. Like in the way that it paints its validity, that you need it to survive. If you don't have it, you're gonna die. It's life and death importance and significance. But why it's so powerful to go to the operating system level is that you're not trying to change the things that are already happening from the same level. I think there's an Einstein quote about this that I need to find, but it's like, you can't solve a problem from the same level of conscious. Have you heard that one? That, yeah, you can't change something. It's very hard to change something from the level at which you're meeting it. And so when you challenge the operating system, you're getting to like the root, to the core of where that need for validation is stemming from, not just attacking the branches that you're seeing in how it plays out. You're getting to the where the program is coming from, not the program itself. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
That's why when you have a new way of operating, all those things can fall out of favor because you now are aware, oh, I don't need the validation that I thought I needed because I'm already whole in myself. Like just that discovery right there of how you are already whole and you realize that, then validation is sort of redundant.
No, it's true, and it's interesting. So does your system go into how society has programmed a lot of this? I mean, a lot of it is environment, a lot of it's society, and then it's not it's tough. I hate giving a cop out, but it's not technically our fault because we're inundated from birth that we run up to our parents with the rainbow drawing. Hey, look at me, I did this. I drew this. I need you to love me so that you feed me and clothe me and give me a place to live. And
Exactly.
then we send it, and then they're like, oh no, they sent me to a building where I'm being, evaluated by other people. Maybe they're not going to love me if I don't do well here. So I mean, society just set up like that. How does your system sort of tackle that? Is it more just focused on the self, or is it also focused on contributing factors?
It is focused on the self. I love the way that you frame that because that's what it is. It approaches it in a sort of counterintuitive way because it doesn't necessarily hit it head on in terms of like go towards the society and figure it out from there. It's more of a look in a different dimension and it provides a realization into how the old operating system functions because the choice is more important than the information, if that makes sense. This isn't information technology. This is imagination technology. So for the survival mode that we're talking about and the way society functions, it's binary, it's ones and zeros, it's information. And that is why we're limited in a human way, because we are not just information. We're something more than that. And so when the focus shifts to more what is natural, what is limitless, what is timeless, the worldview naturally goes towards your inner truth, towards your inner power, and no longer victimized by societally imposed authority. I hope that makes sense. I'm really working on being grounded and tangible here.
No, that does make sense. I find that the biggest issue with self improvement and self discovery, just in general, not everybody has this issue, but many do, and I know that I've had the same issue, is that you kind of don't know what you don't know, and you can go out and read 1,000 self help books, but I mean, if you don't know that your issue is say A and you're tackling B, then you really don't get anywhere with A. So you mentioned that you had support in your system as well for that. Is there like steps or anything that take that into consideration? You don't know what
Yeah,
you don't know.
right. No, I think you are really pointing at a resonant way of why traditional self-improvement and personal development is not quite efficient as it could be because the approach. I mean, you said it so great because what is it really doing here? It here, read this book, do this thing, take this information and add it onto your plate, add it onto your old operatings. It's just pile, 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 pile. And then they invite you to, okay, process and change yourself, fix this about yourself. And you're stuck there with like information overload and you don't know what to do with it, right? Because it's an additive way of making change happen, and an additive way of gathering. Hunter gather. It's gather, 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 but it doesn't help us evolve faster. And so that's why we're counter culture. Is this operating system and the way we support is actually subtractive. So we help you subtract information off your plate, subtract time out of your body, subtract the inefficient, non-essential baggage that you're carrying so that you can be more in touch with your natural state. And that's really the crux of how we're different, is in this information saturated overload, environment, society that we're in. We believe that a subtractive approach is much faster and effective to promote healing, freedom, mastery. And so we're not here to add information to your plate. We're here to show you how to take it away so that you can be natural.
Okay, that definitely sounds intriguing, because I mean, I know we've all heard about the straw that broke the camel's back, right? So you just add one more thing. So it's interesting that you go about taking things away without giving away, the secret sauce, so to speak. Is there any other sort of like tiny example you can give along those lines?
Sure. The go-to, the one that's super powerful, I feel, is the question, considering like put a thought here or an issue or a pain, whatever it is, put that up here and just ask how much time is contained in this. And when you do that, now all of a sudden you're looking at this procrastination or this pain that I've had for 25 years. And with one of the counterculture theories, it's called the day one theory in imagination technology. It challenges you to see that time actually real. Does it actually exist like you think it does? And when you approach how much time is in this thought, and you realize you're carrying it in your body, for example, and then this conscious evolution is inviting, like, do I want it? Is it serving me to carry 25 years in my body? Is it helping me? Is it true that this 25 years is in my body? Then it opens up a new space of timelessness. And that, I mean, maybe some of the listeners have explored spiritual, philosophical things about what the teaching of timelessness is pointing to, versus survival of the fittest is very linear, time based, right? And our identity is formed by, okay, I was born in 1988 and it's and I'm this many years old, but that can be challenged. That way of operating time through your system can be challenged, and you can still survive. And that's the fun thing, is when you realize, oh, I don't have to carry it like this.
Okay, that's a very good example. Thank you for sharing that. We are coming up towards the end here. Is there anything that you feel, Jeremy, that maybe I should have asked that I didn't ask, or maybe something we should have covered that I didn't cover?
And I loved your questions were very great. I mean, I think if we're tying it back around, going full circle to procrastination, I could have one little commentary on like, man, if you address procrastination from a fuel, like the level or the intensity of your procrastination is actually the signifier of how much passion is ready to be unlocked when you kind of cross that resistance. So if you have this like deep level of like procrastinating something, the other side of that coin is how much passion you have for it. Because you wouldn't think about how long have I been procrastinating this, if it wasn't something you actually wanted to do, right? maybe not 100% of the time. Maybe it's procrastinating something that you have to do, but I'm not really talking about that. I'm talking about like the vision stuff, the desire, the project, the ideas that, oh, I want to do this, but I am procrastinating it. I haven't taken a step yet. It's just look at the fuel of it, and it will allow you to address it in a new way. I hope that it's actually, there's a passion there that's ready to be crossed and used as the signifier of that procrastination.
That's actually a very good thing to recognize too. Is that the worse kind of the I don't want to use that word. The more negative that you feel about something, the more positive you're going to feel when that thing is actually out of the way and it's bearing fruit for completely pulling from like three different directions and seeing if anybody can understand
Yes.
that.
Yes.
Anyway,
Yeah. And you don't know what momentum that is actually tied to. The yes, we want the instant gratification pleasure all the time, but that delayed gratification and the going through the pain fearlessly is exactly like you're saying. It can open up all these new doors of momentum and inspiration and next ideas and movement, emotion.
right. And just lastly, before we wrap things up here, what is the best way for our listeners to get in touch with you, Jay?
So thepassioncompany.org for the Passion Company, and we've got a free quiz to find out how clean your energy is in terms of the fuel of your passion. So that'll give you an idea of how we look at it and where you are with energy. And then they can find me on most social medias. JeremyLasman.com has some other interviews I've done and my work and all of that. But yeah, love conversations. Reach out anywhere that any social media site.
All right, sounds good. So, want to thank you once again for being on the show today, Jeremy. Lots of great stuff here, lots of great insight, and thank you once again to our listeners for joining us once again for your source of inspiration, of motivation. And if you can't seem to find that motivation or inspiration yourself today, be that inspiration and motivation for someone else. And we will see you again next time.